Hey, what's up everybody? It's Flux of fluxwithit.com, and today we're going to check out the 1.5 update for the ASM Hydrasynth. This one has a ton of new features and bug fixes, so let's run down the list right now. First up, 5 new Filter 1 models. Okay, so that's your first filter on here. You've got STN12 low pass, STN12 high pass, STN12 band pass. Then you have your 1-pole filter and your 8-pole filter. We're going to get to those in just a second. You have a new state variable filter that's modeled on an SEM style analog filter that has a notch instead of the bandpass. And that filter is a completely new model. It is not just the previous model with an inverted bandpass section. It's a totally new model and it sounds completely different. We have new envelope triggering options to where now you can trigger envelopes from multiple sources. Up to 4 sources per envelope can now trigger your envelopes, which is really interesting stuff. We've got microtonal scale support. This means that you can import scales from Scala and you can, have all sorts of weird chakra-inducing fun with microtonal scales. New MIDI CC mode, which will allow you to automate the Hydrasynth in pretty much any DAW that can handle MIDI CCs as opposed to NRPN. This goes for sending and receiving, so you can control your Hydrasynth from lots of other external gear now as well. You have a new randomize functionality that allows you to randomize by percentages per section. So that allows you to get much more specific when you're using random patch. You have a new distortion model in the pre and post effects section so that you can get really grungy and dirty. The new step LFO can go up to 64 steps and has a feature in it called semi-lock that will allow you to use it as a sequencer. It will lock your steps to semitones. You now have the ability to set modulation destinations from inside your modules. So if you hold, let's say you're inside of an envelope and you want to modulate the attack or decay time, previously you would have to say hit LFO 2 and then envelope 1. Then you would have to go in the mod matrix and adjust the parameter to get to the start or decay time there. Now, from inside that envelope, you can just hold LFO 1 and then press the attack, and it will automatically map directly to that attack. You have a new latch mode that allows you to latch notes until you play a new note. So, for instance, if you play a note, it will latch it, press a new note, it's playing a new note, play a chord, it'll play that chord, play that chord, play that chord, play that note, and then unlatch it. You have new modulation destinations in the voice area. This allows you to modulate detune, analog feel, pitch bend, vibrato amount, vibrato rate, and glide time. You can now also modulate your macros. You can macro your own macro, bro. The ribbon can now be set to be a pitch bend for external controllers. So let's dive into how this thing sounds. Starting off, we're going to go right to our filter 1 here, and we're going to scroll past all these filters that we've had before, and we're going to go to the LP STN12. Now this is modeled on a rather famous gray analog synthesizer with a great resonance, but it's been tweaked pretty heavily to kind of fit within the Hydrasynth and give the Hydrasynth a new character. Bring your resonance up. Let's take that key tracking all the way down to 0 for now. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Ken, you love filter sweeping. You do filter sweeping all the time. What's new about this? So let me show you. Some excellent aspects about this filter is that the resonance is a completely different frequency from the other filters and sounds quite different. To illustrate that, let's grab a different filter that is known for high resonance. Let's check out that MS-20 model. So here we are on the MS-20 model. Sounds mighty nice, right? Now let's take that same one and we're going to switch over to the STN. Considerably different. This allows us to shape our sounds in a completely different context. Here we are on the MS-20. Same settings on the STN. Sorry, that was bandpass for a second there. Let's move forward while we're on low-pass filters here. We have a new low-pass 1-pole and a new low-pass 8-pole. And there's something very interesting about both of these. So as expected, the 1-pole is going to be very smooth. Even with high resonance. Full resonance. What you're going to notice is that the 1-pole and the 8-pole do not self-oscillate, so it's very easy to keep these filters reined in and keep a very nice tight sound with them. Let's go over to that 8-pole. Bring that resonance all the way up. To illustrate, we'll keep that resonance up and I'll switch over to another filter. Let's go to the 3. Considerably different sound here. Let's go over to, let's say, the Fat 24. And then we'll go to the STN 12. And how about the Ladder 12? So they all sound extremely different from each other. None of these filters are like simple, oh, we tweaked 1 or 2 things here and there, and they're basically the same filter with a slightly different resonance. Nope. These filters are totally different models, and they react very differently from each other, which is awesome. Let's check out this bandpass of the STN 12. And the high pass. Let's bring that resonance up. And again, these were built with the same machine learning algorithms and process that we used on the other boutique filters that we used in the Hydrasynth as well. The low pass 8-pole, I want to just say, is quickly becoming my favorite for the future bass sound. I mean, it just being able to boost that resonance up and keep things in a tight order. And you just get a great sound out of that. Let's take a listen to filter 2 for a second here. Now, previously we had low pass, band pass, high pass, and it sounded like this. I'm going to boost the resonance a bit. Not all the way, but enough. Now let's listen to the new notched filter. So if you'll notice, it's a little bit darker, has a slightly different vibe to it. Let's switch between the two. Same settings. And that's just the low pass version here. Up a little bit. Very different sound to each other. And of course, we can sweep this with the morph. So now we have that beautiful notch. And it reacts very interestingly when you boost the resonance. It'll actually remove the notch and then you can move into a peak. And then of course we can keep morphing to the high pass. Very, very useful. Let's demonstrate some cool stuff. All right, so we've heard these filters. Let's pick that 8-pole filter for a second here, and we're gonna drop it down. We're gonna bring this envelope up. Right about there is good. And let's set this filter like so. Let's beef this up a little bit, give it a second oscillator. All right, now here comes the fun, okay? We're gonna go to envelope 1 and we're gonna trigger it from envelope 3 by pressing down after we're inside the envelope 1 area. Press down again. Now you'll see we have our note on is our trigger for the source 1. And then we have source 2, 3, 4, and a tap trigger. Tap trigger lets you manually trigger it. And we're going to set this to LFO3, which is actually going to be triggering the envelope from LFO3's clock. Okay, so it doesn't matter which waveform you have there, it's what clock it's doing. So the rate at which that LFO is moving and going through its cycle, that's what's going to trigger it. All right, so now let's listen. And let's speed it up. We can go all the way up into low audio rate at 150 hertz. We'll drop it on down. You can set it to BPMs. So you now have a way to trigger your envelopes in very interesting ways. Let's do something even more detailed with that. LFO4 is going to actually modulate the decay time of that envelope. So I'm in envelope 1 now, and I want to modulate decay. Previously, I would have had to go out through the mod matrix to really make this happen correctly. But now I can just hold LFO4, and I'm going to press decay. And there it is. There's the mapping, and I just set my amount. Now, let's get really crazy with this and make this thing essentially sequence itself. So LFO5, I'm going to go ahead and set up a step. Now, if we go to LFO5 step, I'm going to set my BPM, and we'll do this at 16th notes. And we'll have it on a single trigger. Press down. I have 8 steps here. I could go all the way on up to 64 steps if I choose. But for now, let's keep it at 8 steps, because it's a little bit easier to manage. And semi-lock, we're going to turn on. Step edit. Let's change this around a little bit. We'll go up 7. Then we'll go 0. Up 3. Up 12. And then we'll go down 7. 0. Up 7. And then we'll do down 4. Okay. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and take LFO5 and map it to all of our oscillators. All oscillators pitch, we'll set that to 128, and let's hear what happens. Now, something about that you might be thinking is, yeah, well, it's not really sequencing in the way that I want because I'm not triggering, the amp envelope along with that pitch sequence. Right? Well, again, we go to envelope 2, press down, and we're going to go to trigger source 2 and change that to LFO5. And let's go ahead and make this, we'll change the sustain all the way down here and just give this thing a nice little kind of plucky sound. We'll keep it like this. So you can actually do these kind of funky sequences, and keep in mind, this is not just one LFO that you can do this from. You can do this from all 5 LFOs here can do this, and you can stack them on top of each other. So if you want to go up an octave, transposing, you could do that. So for instance, LFO 2, I'm gonna set that to BPM sync on, and I'll set it to a 1:1 ratio here. All right. We'll set this to single, and then we're going to go to step. Number of steps will be 2. Actually, we'll do 4. Step edit. Oh, forgot to do semi-lock. Let's turn that on. Step edit. So we're going to go 0. Then it's going to go up an octave. And then it's going to go down an octave. Actually, no, we'll go back to 0 on that one, and then we'll go down. Yeah. So it's just going to go up. It'll stay regular, go up an octave, go back to regular, and then down an octave. Okay? And what I'm going to do is map that over to the oscillator. All oscillator pitch. 128. So now we're getting transposing on that sequence. All right, so now let's take a look at that distortion module. Now the distortion is pretty significant feature here that a lot of people were really asking for. So what I've done is I've set up a very, very basic patch that just has a little bit of stereo spread. We're kind of slightly manipulating the wave scan a little bit, and we're slightly manipulating that stereo spread just a little bit. The reason I'm doing that is because I want you to hear how the distortion affects these sorts of sounds. So let's take a listen to the dry sound. Now let's bring up this distortion here. Take it up halfway. Bring it all the way up. And the tone will allow us to really shape it. So if you want to go for that brittle, industrial, or lo-fi sound, or that dark, heavy sound, and then you have full control over the asymmetry and the curve as well as the drive. Now if you want to back it off and get a more subtle sound, now let's initialize this and take a look at that on a sine wave. There you are already. And there are some presets. And we can shape this. Go full. Very powerful distortion module to use along with your Hydrasynth. So I feel like I'm going to save the rest for another video, but this is 1.5. This is just a taste of it. And, you know, I know that this is not a musical demo so much as, you know, just diving into the nitty gritty of what the features actually are. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask, and I will be doing more videos on this as well. This is Flux of fluxwithit.com. Peace.